And here we go, and we start our presentation.
All right, guys. As I said, that this boot camp is basically for EPR. So we're gonna teach you how to do a long film. So a long film is basically usually what, like 8 to 12 minutes?
8 to 12 minutes.
Yes. So that's one of the many categories for the film, and that's basically what me and William did this fall, and it was something else. So, all right. So we usually separate the movie production by 3 types. Pre-production, so it's before you start filming. Production is when you film. And post-production, so it's when you edit and upload and stuff like that. So pre-production. Before we begin, I want to give you the roles that we had. So basically, I was screenwriter, I was director, and as well as I was an actor for it. And William here was chief editor basically, and he was also cameraman as well as cinematographer. So I will be talking about pre-production because it's basically forming up the idea. So if you would like to, thank you. If you would like to go over here, look at the board. That's basically where we be having the presentation. Okay, so basically you can start off with a film. You start off with an idea, right? So depending on what type of film you want to make, brainstorming and storyboarding are important. So brainstorming, you take out a sheet of paper, write your ideas, etc. And storyboarding, it's basically more if you're into illustration. So basically you can write down, like draw what type of scene or type of concept that you have. So writer's block can be very difficult when you're writing a script or you're writing a film. I know that from experience. So That can be fixed by interests and hobbies. What I like to do is I like to watch movies myself, and I like to take inspiration by that. That's usually why I really enjoy filmmaking. I tend to organize my ideas by which ones I find more plausible, so that means more likely to do and amusing, and those that aren't. Because you have to remember, even though yes, it is amazing that we have the opportunity to create, we are a $0 budget. So you have to be sure that you have to think about what is obtainable. You can't say, oh, I'm gonna do a movie about aliens, but where are you gonna get the aliens? You know what I mean? It's something that's plausible to your budget. So once you settle on one idea, you start expanding on it by organizing how the story turns out. I recommend having a notebook and kind of organizing and writing whenever you have the chance. So you can organize it by plot points, characters and characteristics, and maybe character development, which is also really important if you want to do a fiction, specific shots, and etc. So continuing on, once you have that idea on the plot or the whole concept, start writing your script. So when we were doing AV, we started AV, software that Mr. Sanchez showed us is called Writer Duet. So basically it has the exact format as a script. So it has interior, and it shows you different types on ways to make a script, and it has the exact keywords. It looks exactly like the ones from the movies. So if you want to write that down, I would really recommend using Writer Duet.
And we will link it in the PowerPoint?
Yes, I'll link it right now. Hi, Mr. Sanchez. And then also optional storyboard. I didn't really use storyboarding because I'm not a good drawer, to be honest, and I usually take my inspiration by my writing, so that is optional to your liking. This is very important when it comes to before you even begin filming. You need crew, you need cast, you need all these things. You really need, and I don't emphasize this much from experience, you really need a reliable team. And you really need to rehearse whatever you're going to do. So you have to have actors, obviously. So I would recommend holding auditions in class or whenever you have the time in after school setting or friends. But you have to make sure they're reliable. Just because they're your friends doesn't mean that they're going to be hard working with. And you have to make sure of that because it's going to be very difficult in the filming process. You can have an assistant director and props director. So basically, if you need any props, if you need any help finding out what type of location you can use, if you need to contact some people, you can have an assistant director to do it. A cameraman is pretty much, even though it's pretty much underrated, it's pretty much the most essential thing you can get because they are very linked in with the director, and I'm so glad that I had William as my cameraman because he was able to get my vision for what I wanted into the way that he worked the camera and etc. These are optional. You can have a co-editor, so you can have more than one editor, co-director, or etc., whatever it comes to mind, and a boom mic operator. This also is pretty much essential because just as it is important to have video, it is very important to have really good audio as well. It's very difficult to balance it, especially since we're young and we don't really think so. So one little tip on the side, I would really recommend that when you're filming, always make sure the boom mic is on. That has happened a lot before. Yeah, always make sure the boom mic is on. And always go back to the shot before you think, you do the shot and you're like, oh, that looks fine. But then when you come to editing it, you realize that it's not good and you can't fix it. Always make sure that everything is correct. So like I said, and I'm going to say it again because it's really important, make sure you have a reliable team. Production. So this is basically actually filming. Scheduling is extremely important. If you do not have any structure to how you schedule and how your pre-production works, you will never have structure in your own film. So what I would do is, to get more experience, we decided that we wanted to make a long film, and it was around October, so we wanted to make it a theme of kind of Halloweenish type. And we basically got people that were interested in the film, and then it kind of went lower, I guess you can say. The amount of people that we had kind of decreased based off the ones that were really committed to doing it. So we had 3 other actors besides myself, Michael, Lorena, and Mariana. And what we would do is we would go into that room and we would basically try to practice the lines and give each other tips. And there's a difference between complaining and constructive criticism. Please give constructive criticism. You have to be nice and you have to be respectful because they are working for you and they are doing as much as they can to help you out. So you have to be respectful in either way possible. What we would do is since we were in the middle of class, we wouldn't take too much time because we obviously have other things we need to do. So while you're rehearsing lines simultaneously, you can get access to things like locations, props, Foley. So since there wasn't that many people in our crew, me and William had to be a lot of multiple roles. So I was in charge of props, and I was trying to figure out schedule time. So I had this Google Docs, and I would basically give a bunch of characters and say, okay, this scene needs these certain characters. When can we do it? Where are we going to do it? And just organize it because that's extremely important to make sure that everything is great. Make sure your team will be able to attend whenever you're going to film, because it really sucks when you say, oh, we're going to film this date, and then last minute they say, oh, I can't make it, and you're already there, because that happened to us multiple times. Multiple occasions, and it's out of school. So you have to not be stern, but don't think that they're going to get away with it, because it just remind them that even though that this is fun and games and we are making a film and it's pretty awesome, this is professional. Use your filming time wisely and always make sure you got the shot. As I said already, you just make sure that you have everything done and you're good to go.
Can I make a quick add?
Yeah, go for it.
I highly recommend. So hi y'all. A huge recommendation that I can make as to making sure you always get the shot is always do more than one take, because a lot of times we may be lazy and want to just rush it out and only do one take, and it doesn't come out that great. If you do more than one take, I usually do 3, sometimes 4.
Yes, if I say so.
and yeah, she's the boss. And from there, we'd always be able to rate and pick the best one out of the 3. Even make slight changes in the acting or in the shot or something, so that way you can have more options to choose from, and you can choose which is the better of the 3 or 4 that you do. Thank you.
Thank you. 2 things that I didn't mention that are on the slide. Make sure you have equipment, so camera, boom mic. Don't be too fancy. It doesn't have to be too fancy if you don't want it to be. Like I said, you might be in a $0 budget. What we would do as a boom mic is we would get a selfie stick and put a phone there, and then put the voice recorder thing. That worked perfectly. And you can even use your iPhone if you don't have a fancy smancy camera. Use time management correctly. It depends on the type of film. So short films usually take 2 weeks maybe. Ours took about
3 weeks to film.
3 weeks to film, and then
scheduling
yes,
but if you schedule it correctly, it could take 2 weeks to actually film it.
Yeah, It just depends on how things go, but it depends. I say no more than a month for
Can I
filming
just get my
wise.
2 cents?
What's up?
Don't forget to charge your camera, and don't forget
Yeah.
to get your SD card. This has happened to me before. I've tried taking pictures of Vanessa, or like anything. I forget my SD card in my computer, or I forget to charge my battery. It sucks because then you don't get to do anything. And it could be for photography, filming, your mic, or anything. Just be careful. Make sure all of your equipment is 100% ready for production.
Okay, so...
There's 3.
Oh, okay. So, hi guys, I'm William, by the way, Beatty. I'm going to be talking to you about post-production. And post-production is basically like the editing and the publishing of the actual work. So, it's extremely important. Like, this has to be one of the most important jobs. And it may sound easy editing, like, oh, I'll just put the clips together, put some audio, and then it comes out. It's not. It's a really painstakingly grueling task. A big recommendation I can make is keywording in Final Cut Pro. If you don't name a clip correctly, you're going to be stuck there looking at it. And if you name clips individually, like scene 1, alpha, scene 2, you know what I mean? From there, you can organize it better and immediately just be able to zip with your mouse and stuff. I also highly recommend, I barely figured this out this year, that you can make multiple libraries. I recommend making multiple libraries for certain projects and such. Had I known that, this probably would have gone by a lot quicker. Also, never rush into the process yet, but don't be procrastinating either. You don't want to rush into it because then it's going to be kind of nasty.
It'll look rushed.
It'll look rushed. Like the amount of effort you put into your film, it'll show. If you put a lot of effort into it, it'll show. If you put less, it's definitely going to show. How long did it take to edit? I think it took... It took like an additional 2 weeks or so.
Like 2 weeks. It was around 2 weeks.
Because and even if you do, another recommendation I can make is that even if you don't have all the shots filmed already, edit what you have in the spare time that you have. Like, let's say you schedule something and it doesn't happen, but you still have some clips that you can edit it, get it done, because I assure you that time is important. Also, toy around with Foley and music to provide an overall better feel for your film. I think this was actually we used a soundtrack before, but this was the first time that I looked up specifically a non-royal. I highly suggest non-royalty music, by the way. It makes it so much easier. Which, in case you don't know, non-royalty means basically there's no copyright strikes or anything. You can just search it up on YouTube and it'll come up. But adding a soundtrack gives such a feeling to your film. Our project was more of a somewhat horror suspenseful type, and so I looked for that type of music, and it made some of the scenes that were
good.
That were supposed to be more dramatic. We used a cover of Fleetwood Mac's "The Chain" in one scene, and it really the scene was good as is, but
because of that, it was whoa.
Yeah,
the way that the characters interacted with each other, and then. I'm the one that came up with the songs, by the way, besides the non-royalty, because there's 2 songs that we used, and The Chain, the lyrics, it kind of reflects on what the scene was about, so I automatically thought, why not put it there? And it really truly whoa, I can't have no words. I'm really proud of that scene.
And that's another thing, is that if you're gonna use music with lyrics, pay attention to the lyrics, because sometimes it'll really reflect on the scene, and you can have such a great scene.